Hi, welcome back to the Pressing Matters. I'm Scott Wilson. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for your support over the last few videos. The response has been incredible, and we're very happy about that and excited to bring you more interesting content. So keep tuning in, subscribe, and share the videos. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So I was looking at the analytics, which is not something I really relish, but it's something that's important for me to look at. And I noticed that, contrary to my belief that our viewership was more in the older age range, predominantly male, that there's a lot of younger viewers in the 18 to 24 category watching the channel. So I thought that maybe it would be a good time to really do a full-scale discussion and demonstration of record care. And we had touched on it previously in a video, unexpectedly really, in the Year of the Cat preview video. We found out that there was some surface noise on the pressing that arrived from Friday Music. So we did an impromptu cleaning session, which I hadn't planned, but it turned out to be very popular, and a lot of interest was conveyed in seeing something, a full-scale video. So we're going to do that today. First, I want to kind of discuss about record collecting in general right now. You know, right now, with the exception of reel-to-reel tape, vinyl is the most expensive medium to listen to music. It requires money, and it requires an investment. And you know, I hate to think of records as an investment, but that's what they've become. Of course, it's always about the music first. I wouldn't suggest buying records like you buy stocks or cryptocurrency. But records do, right now, are holding their value and going up and up and up. So you want to keep your records in excellent shape. And having a proper cleaning regimen and proper tools for cleaning is really important. I remember back when I was first starting to collect, well, not first, when I got into audiophile pursuits and started collecting in the, I guess it was the early 90s when I really started with high-end audio and the absolute sound, etc. I really wanted to get that machine that's in the background there, and I couldn't afford it. I just couldn't afford it. I wanted to put it on layaway, and the guy at I guess it was Sound by Singer maybe, looked at me like I was crazy. But I ended up saving on my own for it, and it's the #1 most important investment that I've made in audio. And the reason is because now my collection has been all thoroughly cleaned, thoroughly re-sleeved and protected, and I'm so glad it has been, because I just looked at Discogs the other day. Now, if you don't know about Discogs, I'm going to do a video on that as well. But Discogs is where you can log your collection, and it follows auction prices and gives you tallies of the lowest price, the average price, and the highest price of each item in your collection. And we're assuming they're in great shape, so they're going to be on the higher end. So it's shocking to me, because I just started doing the logging this year, and I'm up to like 1,600 records, and already, I'm not going to give you a figure, but it's a significant amount of money that I have invested in these records, and their value has just skyrocketed. And if I ever decide to turn around and sell the records when I no longer need them, I don't see that happening. I don't have heirs to leave them to, so I really don't know what's going to happen. But they will hold their value because they are in near mint condition, because I've cleaned them and I've taken care of them. The VPI, I think it's called the HW16.5, is a workhorse. It's the best value vacuum cleaner, record cleaning machine on the market. And without that, I would be lost, because almost every new piece of vinyl that comes into the house needs to be cleaned. And when you think about it, the conditions in which records are pressed, now they're not pressed in a clean room like a laboratory. It's a factory, basically. And they may take steps to keep things as clean as possible, but there's dust in the air, there's dirt around, there's fingerprints on records. When we're talking about what is basically a rock dragging through a groove, you don't want it to hit anything, dust, grit, because what will happen is, as the record is, as a stylus is going through the groove, it's heating up, and it's going to push that particle into the vinyl and cause a permanent tick, and you don't want that. Now, that being said, I have pulled out records and played them immediately, and had good results. You know, it was a very clean record, good pressing, but I don't recommend that. If you can get a proper cleaning regimen down, that is the way to go, because we're talking about microscopic levels here of interaction, and you just have to have a clean groove to get the kind of sound that we're looking for. There can be all manner of contaminants in the vinyl, on the vinyl. There is something called mold release, which is something that's added to help the pressing release from the mold, and that stays on the record as well, and you want to remove that. Dust and dirt, fingerprints, whatever. So there's a lot to consider, and the best way to remove that is with a wet vacuum cleaner. And the market for these has expanded. There's great offerings from many different companies. There's also ultrasonic cleaners, which is a whole different ball game. But today I'm going to focus on the vacuum cleaning machine, and we'll start talking about that. So when you first receive a record, the first thing you want to do is check out the sleeve. Pull it out. If it's a paper sleeve, you got to ditch it. Unless it's a printed sleeve, you can save it. You want to save that, or a lyric sheet or something like that. But it's a good idea to invest in a high quality record sleeve, to re-sleeve records that don't come in their own high quality sleeve. Most audiophile records do come in a great sleeve, but there are some that you will want to change. So I put together a little pile of sleeves. I want to just kind of go over what you should do in each case. As I said, plain paper sleeves are terrible for records. They will slide out and scratch. They can add dust, paper dust to the record. They can create static. So it's best to get rid of those. Carefully withdraw the record from those. Being careful not to have the paper touch the record. If you can get your hand in there and pull it out. Those kind of things you learn as you go along, but that's number one, get rid of those. Also, on older records, used records, oftentimes, especially imports, you'll find something like this with the Decca and other labels from Europe. These from the mid 60s. have lining, which is great, but oftentimes under certain conditions, the plastic deteriorates. It can make marks on the vinyl if it's in too warm a situation. Best to get rid of these. Keep it if you need it as part of the package, but put it away from the record and re-sleeve the vinyl. So those are a no. These are Japanese sleeves. They are convenient because they are very delicate with the record and they fit into jackets that are really tight. However, they're really flimsy, they're hard to handle, they're hard to re-sleeve with, they're not that protective. I don't recommend them, so I changed those as well. These are coming with the new Blue Note classic reissues. I think they're fine, they're okay. Not top notch, but they're all right. I would keep those on because the controversy over if they're scratching the records has pretty much been laid to rest. Here's an early example of a non-scratching anti-static made in Japan sleeve. These were put out by Diskwasher. Remember them? Diskwasher had those little record cleaning kits with a little wooden velvet brush and the liquid you put on the brush. Well, they made a number of different products and this was one of them. It's called the Diskwasher VRP Sleeve Valuable Record Protector. Non-scratching plasticizer protective, which is what I was discussing on these. The plasticizer leaches onto the vinyl. So that's free of that. It's anti-static, great stuff. You probably won't see those too often. They're not for sale anymore, but you might see them on older records. Probably means it was taken care of well. This is probably the gold standard right now. This is the MoFi original master sleeve that comes on all their original master recordings. These are archival quality, non-scratching, anti-static. They open like this. There's plenty of room to get your hand in there with a record, which is great because it doesn't slide against any surface as you take it out and put it back in. It's also got an extra backing, which helps keep it more rigid, which is good. I like these very much. And probably if I had my way, I'd re-sleeve everything in that. But I also do like these. I can't remember where I got these, but they're a modern version of like the European ones that I showed you. The type of plastic they use for the lining is way better than it was in those days, and no problems come from these. I like these. I like the appearance of them. I like the sturdiness of the paper. It's a good sleeve as well. So something along that line is what you want to look for. I just pulled out this because I was thinking I need an example of the weird RTI sleeves that were around at one time. And I thought about this release and I realized I never changed these sleeves. These are the pink RTI sleeves. I don't know if you can see that they're pink, but they had a little controversy in their day too. Put this down here. They feel weird. They feel a little powdery almost. And people were noticing over time that the powder would make marks on the vinyl. At one point I freaked out and checked every record to make sure I didn't have these on the record. I guess I still have a few box sets that have them, so I will change these, but it was discovered that it's not permanent. It can be removed, the little bit of hazing. It can be removed on a vacuum cleaner. So they're not the softest material. I think There are new ones that are not pink are okay. They're coming on the Tone Poet series and anything from RTI. So those are okay. I think you can work with those as long as you're very careful inserting and removing the record, because they are stiffer and the edge can be a little sharp, so be careful there. As far as outer sleeves, these are very, very important too. To preserve the jacket is incredibly important, because if you have ever dug through a thrift store bin, you see how beat up covers can get. And even just the act of sliding in and out, the pressure can create ring wear. It's something you want to try to avoid, especially when you're buying a lot of new vinyl. You want to keep everything as pristine as possible. I have all mine in it's called a 5 mil sleeve. It's crystal clear, pretty much crystal clear, compared to polyethylene sleeves. They're rigid, and they're big enough for gatefolds and regular releases. You can see the artwork very well in them, which is great. They are stiff around the spine, so when you're moving them in and out of this shelf, you're protecting the corners from bumps. And there's nothing that annoys me more than a corner ding on a record that was once perfect. So these help preserve everything in that regard. These are also great because if you're moving or anything and transporting vinyl, they're in a box. If any moisture got in at the bottom for any reason of the box and have started to absorb, you would be protected in that case. These are waterproof as far as that's concerned, which was an issue for me at one point. I had some things in a storage space, and certain areas of that space got a little damp, and I was worried about the records, but they came out perfect. There was no problem whatsoever because I used these. So that's another thing to consider. If you can't afford these, or a little bit more money, the polyethylene ones are okay, but they get cloudy. I don't know if I have an example here. I think I've thrown them all away. But yeah, so outer sleeves, very important. Now there's a new model of outer sleeves. Oh, let me also explain this. There are what are called resealable sleeves. So that's where they go into a pocket and there's a flap that goes over to the back with a little strip of adhesive that you pull off when you're going to use it for the first time and seal the record in the sleeve. It sounds like a great idea, but it's the dangerous idea because those little sticky stripes can accidentally touch the record, not the record, the jacket, and pull off the print. You have to be very careful with that if you're going to use that type of sleeve. I used to use those sleeves all the time, and when I had a couple of accidents, I decided to switch them out. And it's also very, it's a little inconvenient to tear it open and every time you want to use it. I don't know. I think this is the sweet spot. These are great. There's also what they call a double pocket sleeve that I'll try to find a link to the company that's making them. They're kind of new to me. I'm going to try them out, but that's for someone that wants to, for instance, and there are reasons why. So they want to keep the record separate from the jacket. And that means in a sleeve like this, putting it behind, of course, with the opening to the side so no dust gets in, and shelving them like that. I haven't done that except in the case of very fragile, like watercolor paper sleeves or anything that's very fragile. I'll do that. Or something that's an older record that has the seam split. I don't want to keep putting the record in and out. That's a good idea for that type of situation too. But there are some people that want to do this with everything, and the reason is it totally ensures that you're not going to get ring wear because there's no pressure inside the sleeve of the record label against the jacket, which can cause rubbing and ring wear. Personally, I don't like to do it. It adds up. Every time, since this is a thicker package now, it's taking up more of your shelf space. I also don't like it because it kind of thwarts the purpose of a jacket, which is to provide another barrier against dust. So, and look, something like that can happen very easily. Because, I don't know, I just don't like that. It seems dangerous to me. But, see, now you have an opening here. You want to put that in. So the opening is at the top, so it's protected. And then in the sleeve, again, so the opening is protected on this side. I could never understand people that just put the record in like this so they can slide it out like that out of the jacket. That doesn't seem right to me. So I'm a little fussy, but you have to be when you're an audiophile. So yeah, put it in like that. It's totally protected, and that's cool. So yeah, they have these double pocket sleeves where it actually has a separate pocket in the back for your vinyl in the inner sleeve. I'm going to check them out. Some people are raving about them. They say they're really great. I'm going to check it out. Okay, so we've covered inner sleeves. Well, a little background about dirt and dust. We've covered changing out your inner sleeves, protecting your jackets with quality outer sleeves. Now, when a record comes into your house, obviously if it's a used record, it goes immediately onto the cleaning machine because you don't know what's been on it. You don't know if it's been cleaned with another fluid, if there's residue from the fluid, if there's dust from the thrift store or wherever you got it, fingerprints from the previous owner and other crud. You just have to clean a record that's been used. There's no way around that. With a new record, like I said earlier, it's a little bit of an option. You can and you can't. I do. I clean everything. I think you should too, but it is an option. If the record looks super clean and plays clean, maybe you don't need to clean it, but often, even new records, you'll get some noise in the lead-in groove or noise here and there throughout a tick or a pop. Who wants that? I don't want it. So I clean every record. I'm going to take you through the steps that I use to clean a record, especially if I'm hearing some problems like some embedded dirt or noise. I want a silent record, and you know, that's what CDs were supposed to be, like perfect sound forever, and I got tired of CDs real quick. The sound didn't do it for me, and I do love that there's no noise, but if you're careful, you can have that with your records too. You know, when you have a collection of, you know, over 1,000 records or 2,000 records, say, or more, your records are not going to get worn out, because to get around to playing all of them will take most of your life. And you know, most titles in my collection have gotten 2 or 3 plays, and they sound just as good as the day that I bought them. Some, of course, I play more often, and even those are preserved because of the methods that I use. So that's something to think about as well. Oh, I wanted to mention one other thing. Certain types of damage cannot be cleaned away, obviously. One of them is called non-fill. Non-fill is a defect at the pressing plant, and it appears on the record. You can actually see it. It looks like stitching or a little series of beads, and it's where the vinyl did not melt into the mold correctly, or was not released correctly, and that is a permanent defect which needs to be returned. And it happens a lot, not a lot, but it happens more often with new records than it did in the past. So it is important to open all your records soon as you get them and check for defects, because by the time, if you wait a couple months before you open the record and play it, it may not be available to get a replacement. So you want to do that. And that's become an issue sort of with these expensive one-steps and UHQRs. You know, people are allowed to buy a second copy. It's 2 copies per customer, and many do, to keep as an investment or to keep as a gift for somebody or to trade in the future. And the problem is, if you leave those sealed, yes, their value sealed is higher, but if you sell it and there's a problem with one of the records, there's no remedy. And the buyer's going to be pissed. You're going to have to take maybe a loss, not a loss, but less than you would have gotten for the record. And it's just not a good situation. I mean, as much as I like to keep a sealed copy around, I've opened my second kind of blue UHQR. I opened, what did I have? Oh, a fragile one-step. I have 2 of them. I opened the second copy to check for defects. Early on in the one-step series, there was even people that were getting 2 of the same disc instead of, you know, it's a 2-record set. It's supposed to be 2 different discs in there. They were getting the same discs, disc 1 twice, or something like that, or even getting a totally different title in the box. So, you know, you have to take a look, and especially if you're holding them for an investment. So that would be my recommendation. Don't take a chance unless you expect the record to be passed around sealed for the rest of its life, which does happen. I mean, there's sealed Beatles mobile fidelity boxes still floating around in their case. You know, people buy and sell them, and they never get opened, but that's kind of a shame. So open your records. It's okay. They'll still hold their value if you take care of them. Okay, so now we're moving to the demonstration. So say you get a record like I did this Year of the Cat, which we talked about last time. Still has a little bit of surface noise, even though it's been cleaned once. So I'm going to give it a really good scrubbing and show you how I do that. If you come over here, number 1 is this whole area needs to be clean. Like, get some light on it and clean it of any dust and dirt. This should be cleaned every time. This is the velvet wand. They make replacement velvet strips, which you should do every so often. You could also get a second tube, one for cleaning and then one for rinsing. That's probably the best solution. I have never done that, but that's an option. So another thing, if you look over here, this is a really good tip. This is a typical tape lint roller. I like to use it on the cork surface of the DPI to pick up any loose dirt. We don't need that going into the opposite side of the record. Just get that cleaned off before you place the record on there. The VPI comes with a little puck that holds the record in place. Now, as far as fluid application, now there's many different fluids on the market. I'm not going to recommend any particular one, but Mobile Fidelity makes one, Audio Intelligent makes one. There's dozens, Miracle, Doctor. So go to Music Matters or say Acoustic Sounds and go to the accessory section. You'll see all the cleaning stuff. One type that I want to discuss a little bit, and that's enzymatic. That's a special one that you should have some, because that, instead of just everyday cleaning, that lifts deep embedded problems out of the vinyl. So mold release or, deeply embedded dust on old records, this is the stuff to use. Everyone makes one. I happen to use Audio Intelligent, but I'm going to use that on this today. And so just start the record spinning, and just apply maybe, well, I like to put about that much on. I don't know if you can see that. This is the VPI brush that comes with the VPI unit. It seems like a little rough, but it's okay. It spreads the fluid, so lightly drag it along and spread the fluid. Switch it the other way in case it was not covered evenly. Now I'm going to switch it off, and I noticed that, actually this needs a little bit more on the edge. I noticed that the lead-in grooves had noise, so I'm going to focus on the outer band and really give that a good scrubbing. I'm going to scrub it while it's moving first. And I kind of drag it along the outer edge there, just to make sure I work that area extra. Okay, so again, I'm going to drag it. Since this is enzymatic fluid, it has to sit on there for, say, 2 to 3 minutes at least. The longer, well, not the longer the better, but in some cases 2 to 3 minutes is okay. The main thing is you don't want it to dry. So you could go 5 minutes, but make sure that it's completely saturated, because enzymatic fluid, if you let it dry, it's going to create more problems. You're going to get a noisier record. Okay, so we've let it sit almost 5 minutes. I want to point out something to you, which I said earlier, I don't want this to happen, and that's, if you can see this inner band here, the last grooves are drying out. You don't want that. I have a little distilled water I'm going to add just there, and move everything around again so it's all wet. So at this point I'm going to use this type of brush. This is a velvet covered pad. I'm going to saturate it a little bit just so it doesn't absorb all the liquid that's on the record already. It seems like a lot of liquid, but you really need to do that. So this gets deeper into the grooves than the VPI brush. Just go back and forth, especially concentrating on that outer edge, like I said. Move it, do it in thirds. So you can bear down hard, it's not going to hurt anything. This machine will not break. It's very, very sturdy. again, spreading it out again. That should be good. It's been on there 5 minutes. It's been double scrubbed with both brushes. I'm gonna suck the fluid off now, and then we'll do the rinse. So it's gonna be a little noisy for a second. I'm not gonna talk over it. I'm just gonna show you. Start the turntable. Take a second, fresh, clean, pretty clean brush to do the rinse. So I use distilled water. If you don't have any handy and you have some Aquafina, you could use that. It's not that much of a tragedy. It's triple ionized distilled water pretty much, so it's not ideal, but this distilled water is better. So I'm just kind of saturating this with the water. I'm going to do it a couple times because enzymatic fluid really needs to get a good thorough rinse. As a matter of fact, I'm going to stop it and do this. This seems like an awful lot of work, but and you don't have to do this with every record. This is with a problem record. And I hate to be down on Friday music, but this record just happened to be noisy, but I think it can be saved. All right, so you can see it's starting to beat up because it's just water. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. Now we'll go to the next step. Okay, so I like to have a very clean cotton t-shirt on hand when I do these kind of deep soaks because the fluid tends to go around the edge a little bit. So there's no harm in wiping it off like this. Actually, it's a good thing. It helps to remove any residue that's on that noisy section. All right, okay, so we've got the clean record, enzymatically cleaned twice. This is a step that I like to take because when you use a record cleaning machine, you can add static to the record in those last few revolutions of drying. So normally I like to go 2 revolutions and that's enough to get it dry, but I went a couple more on that round, so I just want to make sure there's no static on the record. This is called a zero stat. It's an anti-static gun. They're about $100. They now come in a blue color by a company called Milty. I'll leave a description in the box below. This is kind of an essential thing, especially if you live in a dry climate. I live here in Miami. It's humid all the time. I don't have much of a static problem, but this is how you use it, or at least this is how I use it. There's a lot of confusion about how to use it, but one thing that's agreed upon is 12 inches from the record. You squeeze the trigger slowly so it doesn't make a sound. I can hear a whooshing sound, but you won't be able to hear that. 3 times at 3 points in the triangle. And then last time in the middle, and then away. You hear that noise? If you do that during the process, if you hear that, you've done it too fast. So that's that. That means now that there's no static charge on the record. And you know, a static charge could cause something that sounds like dirt, like ticks and pops. So you want to make sure you get rid of that. This is another tool that I think is essential. It's called a Hunt EDA Mark 6 brush. It's a carbon fiber brush with a velvet center, and it also has anti-static properties. I gotta put this on here. This is a record clamp. And just as a final touch, I'm going to let me actually brush this like this, just to knock any loose dust off. Start at this angle. Let it go around once, very lightly, then flat, and then lift up, and then drag off like that. That's how I've learned to use it, and that's how I feel it's most effective. Unfortunately, this record has been a problem since it came in the house. I do have a replacement that sounds better, but I was hoping to clean up this one. It's not cleaning completely. It sounds okay, but there's ticks and pops on the record that are permanent. I can't get them out, no matter what the cleaning process is. This has been cleaned 3 times, and unfortunately, it's going back. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed the cleaning video. All the items that I used in the video can be found in the description below. There'll be links to all the different companies and products that I used. Thank you for tuning in. I'll see you next time.